The Baltic is cold, grey, and deceptively narrow. On a clear day, a frigate in the Danish Straits can feel like it's staring down half of Europe. That geography, those shallow waters, those choke points, forced Denmark to get clever long ago. Today, the result is a compact force with sharp teeth, a navy that punches like a heavyweight, an air force that just leapt a generation, and an army that trades bulk for speed and precision. If you think Denmark is just pastries and bicycles, stick around. The kingdom guards doors other people walk through, and it has quietly upgraded the locks. History placed Denmark at the seam between the North Sea and the Baltic, and stretched responsibility further still. The Arctic approaches via Greenland and the Faroe Islands. That isn't a ceremonial title. It's a daily job handled by Joint Arctic Command in Nuuk, blending sovereignty patrols, search and rescue, maritime constabulary work, and military surveillance across distances that swallow maps. When a trawler calls Mayday near Disco Bay or an ice edge shifts, Danish aircraft and patrol vessels are often first on scene. That civil military DNA, part sentinel, part lifeboat, shapes the culture of the entire force and explains why Denmark obsesses over interoperability and practical readiness. The last decade snapped Copenhagen out of the post-Cold War days. Rather than nibbling around the edges, Denmark floored the throttle. More than just meeting alliance targets, it front-loaded spending to field what matters first: modern air and missile defense, long-range precision strike, deeper munition stocks, and Arctic surveillance. The logic was brutally simple: buy speed, not excuses. The political center of gravity shifted with the security climate, and budget lines followed. You can feel the urgency in the way units train, in the tempo of exercises, and in the number of initial operating capability banners going up across services. Air power is the headline. The Royal Danish Air Force's F-35A Lightning II fleet sits at the core of a thickening network. Based at Sklustrup, these jets carry quick reaction alert for national air defense and the daily chore of policing Baltic skies. Fifth-generation sensors hoover up the ether, fuse air and surface tracks, and pipe them over data links to ships and ground batteries. This isn't just a stealthy jet slipping past radars. It's a flying router that turns the entire battle space into a single conversation, one Denmark can join, steer, and amplify for allies. The F-35's computers are so chatty that pilots swear the jet could file its own travel expense report, if only it could remember the VPN password. Beneath those jets sits the radar and control backbone most viewers never see. Air surveillance radars knit with NATO's integrated air and missile defense, creating a clean picture out of the Baltic's cluttered traffic. Challenger-based maritime patrol aircraft extend that horizon across the Kattegat and Skagerrak and deep into the Greenland-Iceland-Faroe gap, queuing fighters and frigates alike. Because Danish aircrews grew up in expeditionary cycles, from the Balkans to the Middle East, the force can spin up, deploy light, and plug into coalition command nets with minimal drama. The watchwords are speed and compatibility. At sea, the Royal Danish Navy is why planners keep glancing at maps of the Danish Straits. The Iver Huitfeldt-class frigates are large, efficient hulls carrying serious sensors and missiles. Long-range air search radar paired to multifunction ASA gives them the reach to umbrella ports and sea lanes. Vertical launch cells stack ESSM for self-defense and SM-2 for area coverage, while the newer anti-ship missiles bring stealthy, sea-skimming power against both ships and coastal targets. Danish designers built generous growth margins into these ships. Even the masts look like they've reserved space for tomorrow's sensors. That habit, buy the hull, fit it sensibly, then upgrade relentlessly, lets a small navy keep step with bigger neighbours without refinancing the royal palace. If the Iver Huitfeldt is the heavyweight, the Absalon class is the Swiss Army knife. 1 month it's a command ship, the next a roll-on, roll-off transport, and the month after a floating hospital. All by swapping containerized Standflex modules in and out. The genius is speed. You change capability without changing crews or hulls. Danes call it modularity. The rest of us just call it IKEA but with VLS cells. Same clean lines, far more explosive assembly. The fleet's utility isn't confined to home waters. Danish ships have led anti-piracy task groups, escorted merchant traffic, and anchored complex NATO drills. In the Arctic and North Atlantic, ice-strengthened patrol vessels from the Knud Rasmussen line extend sovereignty and search and rescue. The mix is deliberate: a handful of high-end frigates for the hardest problems, shape-shifting multi-role ships for the missions that creep, and tough patrol vessels that can survive the ice, distance, and loneliness of the far north. On land, the army is compact, professional, and more dangerous than its headcount implies. The heavy punch comes from Leopard 2 A7DK main battle tanks. Modernized for protection and lethality, paired with CV-9035 infantry fighting vehicles and a broadening fleet of Piranha V 8x8s that finally retired the venerable M113s. Mechanized infantry units are built to slot into Allied brigades at speed. The design principle is plug and play. Arrive interoperable, fight interoperable, sustain interoperable. Training rotations emphasize combined arms choreography with drones overhead and electronic warfare in the mix, because the next fight will be cluttered, loud, and fast. Artillery is a story of humility and velocity.
If you ask the Ukrainians, they are asking us for ammunition now, artillery now. The Danish side, we decided to donate our entire artillery.
Denmark donated its planned howitzers to Ukraine early, then pivoted to acquire 155mm Atmos systems and pulse rocket launchers to restore fires quickly. That forced retraining, new maintenance chains, and compressed delivery schedules. None easy, but it put steel back into the order of battle faster than waiting years for a perfect, paper-only solution. The modular nature of Pulse, with potted munitions, gives the army a path to extend range as new rockets come online, pushing the deep fight outward and complicating any adversary's planning. If there's one national priority with a red circle around it, it's ground-based air and missile defense. After decades when GBAD was treated as a boutique capability, Denmark is rebuilding a layered shield, a long-range European system as the high cover and an interim medium-range layer that has proven itself over Ukrainian cities and front lines. The goal is overlapping domes over ports, airfields, energy hubs, and logistics nodes, with mobile pieces to ride with maneuver forces. Combine that with frigate-based area air defense offshore and F-35s overhead, and the narrow seas become a porcupine, small, bristling, and miserable to grab. Here's where we deepen the sustainment story that makes all of this credible. Dual-use innovation isn't a bumper sticker in Denmark, it's the business model. The defense industrial base taps the same engineering culture that made Danish wind power a global export. Naval logisticians study how to plug into shoreside green energy at ports of debarkation, trial e-fuels blends for Ox ships, and leverage battery-assisted harbour moves to cut signatures and costs. Drone labs sit beside civilian aerospace test ranges. The UAS ecosystem in and around Odense runs BVLOS corridors, where small firms iterate sensors, autonomy, and data link resilience that slide straight into military ISR kits. When your drone lab shares a runway with an airport named after Hans Christian Andersen, you half expect the quadcopters to grow up to be swans, preferably with encrypted telemetry. Industry matters upstream too. Danish firms build mission-critical components for fifth-generation aircraft and fit domestic warships with combat systems and radars, anchoring sustainment at home. That shaves risk in a crisis, because when supply chains wobble, being inside the production tent beats waiting at the loading dock. Add to this a maritime cluster experimenting with wind-assisted propulsion for auxiliaries and smart port electrification, and you get a picture of endurance. Ships that can refuel flexibly, bases that can ride grid hiccups, and an economy that can surge critical parts without a begging tour. Civil-military resilience drills turn theory into muscle memory. Denmark practices coordinated responses to hybrid and infrastructure threats with a blunt premise. The first sensor might be a private company, the first responder a local cop, and the first headline a viral video. Exercises rehearse pipeline and cable anomaly playbooks, port cyber incident containment, and rapid security around energy plants and rail hubs. Home Guard units guard bridges and substations, while cyber teams babysit municipal networks. Emergency management agencies sit in the same rooms as fleet commanders and telecom CTOs. The result is not perfection, it is speed. The plan is to move faster than the rumor, fix faster than the outage, and communicate faster than the botnet. Let's stack Denmark against its neighbours for a quick on-screen snapshot to orient the audience. For Norway, think Atlantic Hunter, a big F-35 fleet, maritime patrol aircraft, and submarines prowling the northern seas. Sweden brings the Gripen E, world-class air defence, and a submarine arm that turns the Baltic into a guessing game, plus the fortified Cork of Gotland. Finland arrives with mass, deep reserves, the heaviest artillery park in Europe, and a culture built for mobilization. The Baltic states lean into total defence and ground-based air defence, hosting allied battle groups and rehearsing the receive reinforcements mission day and night. Denmark's niche, the gatekeeper and organiser. Area air defence frigates to umbrella straits and convoys. 5th-gen air power already on watch, a headquarters culture that wires the coalition together, and an Arctic footprint that shows up when the weather turns ugly. Command and control are quiet superpowers here. Denmark leads and co-leads headquarters that tie together allied brigades and battle groups across the northeastern flank. That's the difference between a strong alliance and a loud press conference. Someone actually runs the meeting, sets the comms plan, and coordinates the logistics push. Denmark leans into that role because it multiplies everything else. Your 3 frigates and 2 squadrons matter more when they anchor a wider network. Now for the politically sensitive piece. Long-term sustainability, surging investment, expanding conscription, and compressing procurement timelines are not one-year stunts, they're multi-year marathons. Keeping the pace requires continued public and political support, through election cycles, budget debates, and competing domestic priorities. It means building enough training capacity to absorb larger conscript cohorts without diluting standards. It means retention packages that keep cyber talent, avionics techs, and ship engineers from drifting to private industry. And it means transparency, visible deliveries, credible timelines, and plain-spoken updates, so citizens can see where their tax kroner turned into radar tracks, interceptors on rails, and ships at sea. Manpower is the hinge. Expanding conscription to include women and lengthening service time widens the talent pool and deepens mobilization capacity, but it stresses barracks, medical care, instructors, and equipment pipelines. The smart play is to treat service as a national upskilling program. Send conscripts back to civilian life with certifications in logistics, cyber hygiene, emergency response, and leadership. That loops straight back into total defense, because the people guarding a substation or triaging a cyber incident in a crisis might be the same citizens who wore a uniform last year. Training grounds and routines keep the blade sharp. At Oxbow, armoured units hammer through live fire lanes that choreograph tanks, IFVs, SUAS spotting, and artillery in a loud, dirty ballet. At Karup and Aalborg, mixed air packages, fighters, patrol aircraft, tankers drill quick turns under electronic attack. On Bornholm, the symbolically exposed island, security services, port operators, and the Home Guard practice what to do when ferries halt and the internet hiccups. The aim isn't to ace a scripted scenario, it's to build reflexes across uniforms, job titles, and municipalities. Long-range precision strike is Denmark's next deliberate step, whether by air-launched munitions, ship-fired missiles, or land systems. Credible reach out to the far side of the Baltic changes the adversary's math. It forces dispersal, raises the cost of staging areas, and makes any headquarters within range sleep fitfully. Denmark doesn't need thousands of missiles. It needs enough precision that an opponent's planner cannot bank on safe logistics hubs or a tidy roll-on into the theatre. Under the sea and across the seabed is where 21st century Europe suddenly feels 19th century again. Pipelines, power cables, and data arteries crisscross Danish waters. Protecting them isn't about parking a frigate on every mile. It's about surveillance, pattern of life data, quick reaction patrols, and partnerships with commercial operators whose sensors often see first. Unmanned surface and subsurface vehicles, towed arrays on small craft, and data sharing agreements can make a spiderweb of early warning. Denmark's long mine countermeasures pedigree, sonar expertise, precision navigation, patient seamanship translates neatly into this new mission. The only thing worse than losing internet is losing it because someone accidentally trawled a cable. Suddenly, even your most offline uncle becomes a maritime security expert. Let's stress test the force with two scenarios. First, a Baltic convoy push. Allied shipping needs to surge through the Great Belt and Øresund, while electronic warfare clutters the air and cheap drones buzz every buoy. The Navy seeds mine countermeasures along approaches, Absalon's host-to-float command posts, and Iver Huitfeldt's extend a high, clean radar picture. Ashore, medium-range air defense batteries guard port cranes and fuel farms. Mobile elements shadow railheads. F-35s fly racetrack patterns, sniffing emitters and passing tracks to ships and ground units. Home Guard teams harden bridges and escort convoys. Cyber crews babysit port operating systems. The convoy moves. It's not pretty, but it's protected by overlapping bubbles and a nervous system that works. Second, an Arctic hybrid squeeze. A bad storm season brings a spike in SAR call. While anonymous social accounts churn conspiracy bait, and underwater sensors flag fishing where no one should fish. Joint Arctic Command spins up a combined cell with local authorities. Patrol aircraft widen search patterns, a patrol vessel shadows the suspicious trawler, legal and public affairs teams push transparent messaging, and cyber units watch municipal networks. The goal isn't to win a battle, it's to deny a narrative, deter a probe, and keep services running. Denmark's habit of convening the mayor, the admiral, the Coast Guard chief, and the telecom operator before the crisis pays off during it. Special operations sit behind both scenarios like a sharpened scalpel. The Jägerkorpset and Frogman Corps specialize in reconnaissance, raids, and maritime interdiction. The quiet, nasty work that unlocks options for everyone else. Their existence shapes planning. Routes are chosen with their eyes in mind. Timetables built around what they can confirm, and risk managed, knowing there's a precision tool within reach. So, how insanely powerful is Denmark? Powerful enough that maps look different once you add sensors, missiles, and command nodes. Powerful enough that F-35s on alert and big radar frigates change the air picture over the Baltic. Powerful enough that a volunteer home guard can secure refineries and railheads while regulars deploy. Powerful enough to run a headquarters that ties 3 capitals to a common tempo. The trick is sustainability, keeping money, manpower, and munitions flowing through the late 2020s without grinding down the social contract or losing focus to the crisis of the week. In the end, Denmark's strength is clarity. It knows the terrain, it knows the alliance, and it knows the clock is ticking. The country has chosen speed. Missiles now, air defenses now, F-35s now, and it rehearses where it matters. From Bornholm's ferry terminals to Greenland's ice edge, that's a template for mid-sized allies under pressure. Build the shield, join the network, keep a sharp but affordable sword, and make sure the mayor knows the playbook. If strategy were a pastry, Denmark's would be a layered kringle. Flaky outside, dense in the middle, and surprisingly filling. 2 final questions for the future. Will Copenhagen double down on long-range strike, magazine depth, and Arctic basing as the decade tightens? Or ease off once the current surge lands, trusting deterrence to coast? And if the next crisis breaks out in the Baltic or the High North, which design choice will be tested first? The bet on layered air defense, the plug-and-play modular fleet, or the social license to mobilize fast? Answer those and you'll have the measure of a small country that keeps rewriting what smart power looks like at the water's narrow edge.